what is your project about? What is Ahau?
So Ahau is a tribal archiving project. So this is stories, but also family trees so that you can see how different people related to one another. And it's the focus that's different than other projects is it is done using peer-to-peer software, which means that nobody needs to run a server and the data is all held on the computers of the families who use it.
Okay, so who is this project for? Who do you focus on?
So the users who we're serving are Maori communities. So these are iwi, which is a word for sort of tribes, which could be sort of thousands of people, down to whānau, which are like little families or little extended families. So specifically, we're working with Maori community in New Zealand, but we've also had interest from other Indigenous communities overseas.
That sounds like so much work. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, it keeps us busy.
How is this project funded? How do you raise money? How do you plan to keep it sustained?
A couple of the founders did a startup accelerator thing, and so there was some initial funding from it was like a blockchain startup, but that provided some initial funding. The other funding the majority of the funding that we've received though is through grants. So these are grants from the New Zealand government and philanthropic organisations in New Zealand. We also have partnerships with a few iwi and land trusts. These are sort of Maori collectives that are managing lands, traditional lands.
I mean, that's beautiful because, for example, in a place where I come from, in Nigeria, we have a lot of cultural history. So it'll be very, very beneficial to have a way to record this open sourced, where a lot of people can jump on and, get this easily. I really love this incentive. It's really, it speaks to me personally, probably because of where I come from. Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear. I mean, I've heard different countries and different cultures have completely different approaches to sort of knowledge. Like one of the things that was an eye-opener for me was that there's a real focus on a lot of the history not being completely open to the public. Even within a tribe, some knowledge is not for some people. For example, there are some songs that are only known by women in the tribe. And so how do we build software which supports those traditions or those boundaries? Yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like Ahau would spread the word faster to people who even don't have any idea about things, about their culture, about their tribe. But how is Ahau open sourced? Or how does it use Hypercore protocol?
So we use a few different open source tools. Where Hypercore comes in is for syncing of some of the larger files. So in particular, we knew that we wanted to be able to support video. Video is probably the hardest one for a peer-to-peer project to support because the files are so big. So with Hypercore, we work with some people who had experience with the Hyper ecosystem and built an open source module that other people can use, which allows you to basically run encrypted streaming video over Hypercore. So you can start watching a video as you're getting a copy of it, and then once you've got the copy of it, you can share it to others in your family as well. Yeah, so Hypercore does the heavy lifting of lots of the large files.
That makes sense. What parts of Ahau are open sourced, and where can these code repositories be found?
All of it is open source. So it is on GitLab, which is like GitHub, but slightly different flavor. So it's gitlab.com/ahau, AHAU, and almost all of the code is there. We also use code from the Scuttlebutt ecosystem, as well as code from the Hyper ecosystem. So those are both open source projects.
So is Ahau a website application or it has a mobile application?
So it doesn't run on a it doesn't run on a website. You have to download an application that runs on your computer. So the reason for that is that it's doing quite a lot of complicated stuff and needs to access your file system. So normally a website can't access your hard drive to store things like videos, at least very easily. So it is a desktop application you install.
Okay, I see a lot of good stuff on your websites, and it's very simple and easy for even a novice to navigate, and that's a beautiful thing. Well done. What are the plans for the next few months, the next few years? What do you have in store?
So I think probably like less on the technical front, more on the like social and organizing front. So Ahau has been a project that's been working on for like 3 or 4 years, and we've been working in, as I said, in partnership with communities, and they've been spinning up their sort of processes around archiving. So that means things like having conversations about like, what do we want to write down? What do we want to not write down? Who's allowed to say things, and how do we decide what is to be recorded, and who should have access? These are all of the conversations that you need to have before you launch a community. You don't have to, but many communities wisely want to explore those things before they commit to putting huge amounts of their knowledge in one place. So I think this year will be about supporting communities to move from having sort of their historians using the tools to sort of opening it more to community. Some of these communities are like thousands of people, so there's a chance, if things go well, that this tool will go from being useful to sort of like 50 people to maybe like thousands of people quite quickly, if things align. Technically, things that are up next are we're running a current project exploring using digital identity to do things like once tribes are set up with their registry of who is a member, it's possible that the tribe could issue credentials, kind of like a driver. You know how like a driver's license or a passport is a piece of paper which some trusted entity says, this is Mix, and you believe them because it looks like an official document or whatever, and it's got the special stamp from the government or whatever. We're experimenting so that the digital technology exists to cryptographically sign things which are the same as like an authentic stamp. And if large tribes are recognized by the New Zealand government, which they should be because we have a treaty in place, we think that there could be the possibility that instead of just being, going to a bank and saying, I'd like to open a bank account, and they say, show me your New Zealand passport, that you could also show them a digital certificate which has been signed by a recognized tribe, and that would allow you to access services without having to lean on a crown entity, but instead lean on your indigenous community. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Watching you explain this to me, and me imagining all of this, it's serene in my head. Because aside being from a country that has a lot of cultural history, I have friends who are from countries that have a lot of cultural histories, and they are not connected to their roots. for example, I am not so connected to my roots. I haven't even been to where I was born and all of that stuff. So I feel very inspired by your project. How? Yeah. So
Thank you.
what if I want to join the community or I want to contribute to the project? How does that work? How do people do that?
Well, so if you go to the website ahau.io, then you can read some information. We have guides. There's contact information if you'd like to talk with people from the project, but there's also like links out to downloaders, and you can go and download the application and try it out yourself with your community or your family. Yeah, and other than that, we've got an open chat that anyone can drop into, which is just at chat.ahau.io. And there's, if people want to contribute code as well, they can find that online at the gitlab.com/ahau. Yeah. What you were saying, just jumping back to what you were saying about connecting back to your history, the bit I skipped over at the start was that it didn't start out as an archiving project. It started out as a project where the question was like, how can we use new and emerging technologies to further enable our communities to coordinate together? Because Maori communities have like a strong sense of like connection and family, which means that coordinating things should be like a superpower. But what they discovered was that lots of people don't necessarily know where their heritage is, or they might live overseas in Australia and they don't have a strong connection back to their homeland. So they can't be involved in decisions about what to do with the land or with their tribal resources. And so that's why this is kind of like working on history is like realizing that we needed to build foundations to support people to reconnect. And then the next phase is start coordinating. So that's where the digital identity stuff comes in. But we're also like thinking long term about like how making decision making be part of the platform. So lots of these communities, they might have a piece of land, and then they might like to ask the people in the community, what would you like to do? What should we do with it? And so being able to do all of that using distributed tools that they own would be the dream next step. Yeah.
That's a lovely goal. That's a really lovely goal, and I really, really, really hope that all your goals for this year are achieved. Like tick, tick, tick. I really hope that. Well done so much. I have one more question that ever since I heard about the project, the question just popped into my head. Why? Ahau? How did you come up with that name?
Oh, it's a Maori word, te reo Maori. Yeah, it is short for sort of Ahau, for I am. So people talk about, it's used often in pepeha and like introductions where you introduce yourself, where people say, I am from this river, I am from this mountain, I'm from this region, I'm from this family, and finally my name is Mix. So yeah, it's commonly referred to word. Yeah.
That'll be all for our interview today. Thank you so much for your time. And I know a lot of people with deep cultural values would definitely be interested in Ahau, and I can't wait to see more people jump on your project.